Segment 2, Gold and Black Live. You know, Gordon, I am so proud of you. You just are nimble today. You're changing. It is Tim Newton, and we're changing on the fly today. Gordon Jackson and the gang at WLFI do a great job, and we appreciate their work. Tim Newton needs no introduction, and his golden voice is going to be ready for a night game tomorrow, Ross-Ade Stadium, and no drama this week at all.
Better a night game at Ross-Ade Stadium than a night game in the middle of Nevada. Let me just say that.
Okay.
We're done with those. We're done with those for a while.
Oh, I think that game's still going on in some ways. It was a crazy way to end it. So you look at tomorrow night, and then Tom's going to have some questions as well. This is a team that's in an interesting spot because you had a catastrophic injury, in my opinion, in anybody's opinion, Marcus Bailey. You're going to have to confront that and deal with that. But a team also just dealing with a lot of injuries right now.
A lot of injuries, and a team that is building depth, but maybe not at the point where they want to be this point in the season. You could probably you might be able to absorb these injuries a little bit later in the season when these guys have picked up a little more experience. But you talk about Marcus Bailey. I mean, other than Rondale Moore, who's more valuable to this football team than Marcus Bailey? And it's not just, he's a great player, but it's the emotional things that he gives you out there. It's making sure everybody's lined up. It's when everything starts to fly and it gets a little crazy. He's the guy that can calm things down, and that's the hole. That's really the hole that you've got to fill.
Yeah, it's tough. Not only Bailey, but they've been without Lorenzo Neal all year as well, Tim. And arguably, he and Bailey both are the top two players on that defense. Now Purdue has to wade into this game Saturday night against TCU without its two best defensive players. It was already a tall task anyway.
Yep.
And I'd love your input on maybe your speculation and conjecture on Elijah Sindelar. Jeff Brom said Monday he suffered a slight concussion against Vanderbilt.
Is that like being a little pregnant?
That's the same thing. Then, of course, we asked him Thursday after practice about his status. He said he was still in the protocol. But I don't know. I'd like to ask you and get your feelings on the likelihood we see number 2 under center at 7:30 Eastern time.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'd hate to be at a table like this with poker chips in the middle with Coach Brom because he plays it pretty close to the vest. He says it's a game-time decision. That's what we have to go by, and I guess we'll all find out probably about an hour before when we see who goes out there and takes snaps from the starting center in practice, which we assume is going to be Victor Beach. He's had some back issues, but they keep talking about Jack Plummer. They feel like he's ready. They don't think they're going to have to scale back the offense if he has to play. And the next guy up, interestingly enough, is going to be Aiden O'Connell. If Plummer's your guy tomorrow night, O'Connell's your backup. I will point out both of those guys are Krannert School of Management students. I do want to get that. I work. That's my day job. That's
also.
right. That's right. The world-renowned Krannert School of Management. But both of those guys have, especially Plummer. You talk to players around the program, and they have confidence in him. And it's now you're going to play probably against one of the better defenses you'll face all season. Although TCU is going to be minus one of its top cornerbacks tomorrow night, so. And I've got to believe TCU. They opened against Arkansas Pine-Scented Bluff. What did they learn in that game? Really, not a lot. Now they learned that they didn't score in the red zone very well. They got in the red zone 7 times against that team and scored 2 touchdowns. Wound up kicking 5 field goals. Fumbled the ball away a lot, and then they have an off week. So what kind of momentum and I'm sure Gary Patterson runs on the field tomorrow night thinking, well, I don't really know what I've got with this team. So he'll find out at the same time the rest of us will.
Yeah, conversely, Purdue, of course, is well tested. Tim, you alluded to the game in Reno. They had to go on the road, thousands of miles from home, dealt with altitude, dealt with adversity. And then, of course, they come home last week, play an SEC team, score 42 points. Look pretty good from start to finish, especially in the second half. 28 points. Rondale Moore really came to life and sparked that win. So here we are again, the final non-conference game for Purdue. After this, Tim, as you know, Purdue's off. And they finish September playing host to Minnesota. So 2-1, 1-2. I mean, if I'd have told you back in July Purdue's going to be 2-1 after its first 3 games, what would you say?
I might have been a little disappointed.
Okay.
Only because I think now that's when we thought Lorenzo Neal was going to play. That's when you assume that Marcus Bailey isn't going to suffer a season-ending injury and everybody else is going to be healthy. I thought they had a chance to run off a great streak to start the season. But I'll tell you what, 2-1's a lot better than 0-3, which
Yeah.
is where this team stood last
Yeah.
year after 3 games, and everybody kind of gave up on the season then. If they can get, and this is such a pivotal game because you've got the off week, then you got a week to prepare. I will also point out, by the way, Minnesota also has next week off.
Okay.
So you got 2 teams, and that's pretty rare that
Yeah.
you have 2 teams that are both coming off a bye before that game. But yeah, right now, I'll take 2-1
Oh, yeah.
and run to the bus.
I think if you're Purdue, that is the greatest understatement of the year. Now, Tim's day job, like we talked about, at the Krannert School, communications, with Mike, we talking to Mike Berghoff, and just in terms of this, you deal with student athletes, many from time to time, recruiting, but also just the general tenor of the university and the way that people perceive Purdue right now from your perspective. I mean, again, 500 football team under Jeff Brom, but there's
Yeah.
just all this excitement. I didn't see this 2 years. I mean, didn't see this coming back.
You know, and I heard Brian in the last segment and use the word cool.
Yeah.
And I think Rondale Moore and Carson Edwards have helped change the perception of this university. And let's face it, athletics is not the most important thing that happens in a university, but it's the biggest picture window.
Yes.
The example I always use is, you know who the basketball coach is at Duke? Who can tell me who the president is
Yeah.
at Duke University? I mean, that's where people gravitate to. And you look, and all of a sudden now, and Purdue's always had they've had great success in athletics at times, but it's always been kind of the blue collar and you know, where we're going to work hard, which is great. But now all of a sudden, Carson Edwards and Rondale Moore have kind of changed the narrative, and now kids that maybe didn't look at Purdue or didn't even know where Purdue was a couple of years ago, now they say, hey, you know, I could do that. And I think to Matt Painter's credit and to Jeff Brom's credit, they've created a system where players can have success. And Jeff talks about it all the time. We want to help you achieve your goal. And we feel like we have the things in place here from a facility standpoint, from the style of play. You know, the competition here is going to be second to none. His non-conference schedules going forward are going to be pretty difficult. So it's a little different narrative, but you know the reason and sometimes you get isolated. You know, we get so focused on this game and this. Working on campus every day, and I've done it now for 30 years. You keep in mind what the university's all about. And you know, today I emceed a co-op Hall of Fame induction ceremony, which I didn't even know there was a co-op. And you start to hear about some of these alums and some of the things that they've done out in the world. And you think, you know, that makes you pretty proud.
Yeah.
And we're I didn't realize U.S. News and World Report ranked the Krannert Co-op Engineering Program #1 in the country. That's something to be proud of. And we're proud. I think the athletic success under Mike Bobinski is rising and trying to match that academic success. But it is a different feeling at the university now than it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, no doubt. We're seeing the athletics, like you said, Tim, start to achieve and reach for that bar that academics had set for so long. And you alluded to the talent. And then, of course, Jeff Brom. You know, we got to hear from Mike Berghoff about the importance of Jeff Brom to the athletic program overall, not just football. And, yeah, they're only 14-14 overall, but the buzz is incredible. I remember talking to Alan shortly after the Darrell Hazel era ended, and I know you didn't think it was going to be very soon before Purdue flipped their script on the football field. And my gosh, 7-6 in year one.
I stand corrected. But I just didn't see it coming back this fast. I just didn't, in today's world especially, where you're trending away from participation at these types of events on a national level to some extent.
And Jeff's decision to stay had a lot of different ramifications. One is you got to keep a really good recruiting class, and Rondale Moore was going to stay. But the other is the perception. I mean, if he had taken the Louisville job, which I think everybody else in the country expected him to take, it would have been, well, you know, Purdue's back to the stepping stone. Purdue is what Purdue is. And all of a sudden, when this guy decides, hey, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to build something and I'm going to stay with this and we're going to become champions, well, I think fans around the country start to notice that. Hopefully recruits around the country start to notice. This guy's in it for the long haul. He's in it for real, and Purdue is going to go for it. And, you know, I don't know could we say that 5 or 10 years ago? I don't think we could.
Jeff Brom wants to be here.
Yeah.
You couldn't always say that about some coaches.
Well, he's a great fit. He's a great fit for Purdue, and Purdue's a great fit for him.
Yeah, exactly. We always talk so much about fit in life, and when it comes to jobs, and boy, anybody who knows Jeff Brom, his personality, sort of a homespun guy.
Yep.
very blue collar, very down to earth, embodies a lot of those traits that we always sort of associate with Purdue people for years and years and years. Boy, that's Jeff Brom to a T.
And I think what you see, and I can see it when we do the radio shows every week and when you're around him. I mean, some guys, they put the suit and tie on, they're in front of the camera, and they're one way, and then they step away, and they're... Jeff Brom is this all the time.
Yep.
What you see with him in front of the camera, what you see with him on the sideline, it's genuine, it's him, it's 100% him, and there are no pretenses there.
One thing that Jeff will need to do tomorrow is to dial up and keep his team focused and probably positive. I mean, I think it could be a natural thing just with the Bailey injury, and if Sindelar doesn't play, why is he good at that? He just seems to be.
I think the NFL background helps in that because the NFL is such a long grind, and you have to, whatever happened last week, you got to put aside. And I think he's always talked about 12 one-game. It's not one 12-game season; it's 12 one-game seasons. And I think you can hopefully use the Marcus Bailey thing a little bit, try to turn it as a positive. I don't know if Marcus is planning on being in the locker room tomorrow night. Wouldn't surprise me if he's able to say a few things. And you know, we all know what happened the last time we played under the lights at Ross-Ade Stadium. It was a pretty magic night. Talking to the athletic folks this morning, right now I think there are less than 2,000 tickets left, so we're really close to a sellout tomorrow night. It's going to be a perfect night for football. I would think that place is going to be buzzing. What you hope is you get off to a good start, get the crowd into it early, and then just see what you can ride from there.
It'll be an interesting storyline to watch. One last question on 20-year anniversary of the 1999 Women's Basketball Championship, and obviously Tim's other job is play-by-play with the Purdue Women's Program. Still really an interesting story to see when Carolyn Peck, and I thought the crowd reaction last week was impressive. Stephanie White, Katie Douglas, these are icon athletes. I mean, this is a group that and I don't know whether Yukari wasn't back, I don't think, or what.
She was back for the football game.
Okay, but I mean, in the history of Purdue athletics, those are four names that are going to stand tall forever.
You know, I've been around Purdue 40-some years now, and you're around a lot of teams and a lot of special teams. There will never be a team to me like that team, not just in terms of they were a championship team. They were the best team in the country that year. But the story and that was the most together team I've ever seen. They came into the season knowing their coach was going to be leaving. All the assistant coaches had no idea what they were going to be doing. You had Stephanie and Yukari, who really were the leaders, and I think everybody else on that team revered those two, and they played for them, and they didn't want to disappoint them. And that was a team where everybody knew their role. I just have never seen a team that got along so well. And then we saw it, you know, unfortunately it came tragically full circle when we lost Tiffany, and you know, we all get on the bus to go down to Alabama for the funeral, and it's still, I'm holding Yukari Figs up because she is so full of grief that she's collapsing in front of Tiffany's coffin, and you understood the deep affection that these kids had for each other. So yeah, they were great players. I mean, you could put 5 1,000-point scorers on the floor at the same time with that team, so they were incredibly talented, but as good a unit and as good a group of people together as I've ever seen. I'll never see another team like it. And I was just honored to be associated with it.
An absolute blast to watch. Still one of the best games in Mack Arena, men and women, is the Tennessee game. And when Purdue was able to beat Tennessee on that Sunday afternoon, really kind of proved, at least to the world, that they were meant business. I think the team might have felt that it was ready to do that. But unbelievable experience just for those of us that got to experience it, being around it, and no question from that standpoint. Well, we'll look forward to your call tomorrow night. Airtime would be 6:30.
6:30, and then we'll do the game at 7:30, and then you and Nate will do Boilermaker Sports Wrap. Hopefully, as people are driving happily home from Ross-Ade Stadium. Either way, it's going to be late. We know that.
Yeah, it is, but it'll be a fun night in Ross-Ade Stadium to be sure. All right, we will let Tim go back to doing what he's doing, which is a lot of things, and we'll bring in Brian Newbert and close out the show in our last segment of Gold and Black Live. Thanks so much, Tim. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks.
And we'll take a 2-minute break and be back on Gold and Black Live.